Hey guys, so today we are diving into a topic that's on the minds of so many people, creating a clear path to retirement. Now, if you've ever felt overwhelmed, unsure where to start, or you're worried, or maybe you feel like you're behind in your retirement goals, this episode is going to be for you. Now, I'm excited to welcome Dalene Higgins to the show. Now, Dalene is a financial and retirement lifestyle coach, and today she is here to guide us through the essential steps, strategies, and the mindset shifts that you need to build a secure and confident retirement plan. Now, from tackling debt to balancing your savings, Dalene's going to be sharing the insights that you need to get back on track. Stay tuned. Hey guys, I'm Brett Nelson, founder of A Debt-Free Dad. I paid off about $45,000 of debt. Have been debt-free now for more than 11 years outside of my mortgage. I've also been fortunate to help thousands of other people save and pay off tens of millions of dollars with the work that we do here at Debt-Free Dad. Now, after listening to this episode, if you want to take this a step further, you want to get better results with your finances and start seeing those results, seriously, guys, in as little as 30 to 60 days, I'm going to be sharing some details about how you can get started with that later on in today's show. Hey, Dalene, welcome to the Debt-Free Dad podcast. So glad to have you here with us today.
I'm excited to be here and share my thoughts, answer your questions, and help your listeners out.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you first get started with giving our listeners a little bit of a background? Like, how did you get into this line of work of coaching and helping people with their finances, very similar to what we do here, but also even taking it a step further and going towards more of the retirement side? Is this something that you've always done, or was this something that all of a sudden later on in life became a calling of yours because you recognized a need out there?
I worked for 32 years in government, and at about the 17-year mark, I realized that I only had 13 years before I had the option of retiring. It was at that point that I really started my financial journey. Budgeting. I love budgeting. It served me so well, and I love to share my story to help others. And I got really focused at that time. My daughter was 8. So we're still doing the family experiences and creating those memories and, supporting her in all of her activities. So I really just created 2 buckets, 2 directions, if you want to call it that. Short term for all of that fun. And then I was like, okay, I've got to get prepared if I really want to retire. I would have been age 48 had I chose to retire in the 13 years. I'm like, I just want that door open. I'd seen too many people kind of be a cog in the wheel or didn't know how to actually make the exit, right? That's a hard thing to do. So when I was able to, I was at the age of 50, I'd worked 32 years. I did have the option of a pension. That was one thing, but I had to be ready because I took a 40% cut in pay the day I retired. Not eligible for my 401s, not eligible for any investments beyond that. And my husband had retired 3 years before, so I took the jump. As I was getting ready to do that jump, it was about 9 months. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do every day, all day? And started painting that picture. And so I was like, well, you've just completed your financial dream. What if you help others? That's how I came across financial coaching. And I'm like, I want to do this. I love numbers. It's what I was doing in my prior job. I basically taught cops how to budget the tax dollars for what they wanted to do every single year. And so I'm like, I want to do this. I want to help people reach their dream and get the same feeling that I had. June 1 of 2022 is when I kicked it off. And I knew I wanted to support Gen Xers at that time. So I was supporting people, just helping them with getting rid of debt, increasing their savings, getting all of the things done like you do at Debt-Free Dad. And this past summer, I really felt the calling to step in and kind of close the gap with retirement. The gap I see and the gap that I love to support individuals on now is creating a dream. Like, what do you want to do when you retire? As I was getting there, individuals are like, oh, so you're going to go travel. I'm like, no, I like to go places, but I hate traveling. And I remember my dad, when he was getting ready to retire, oh, you got to take up golfing. So there's a lot of these, cliche things that are going on. And I think people are like, well, if I don't want to do that, what do I want to do? And so I incorporated a component in my program, basically retirement lifestyle. Because I created my dream of wanting to retire at 48. So it makes it easier to see where you want to go and what you want to do. And I feel that's the same thing for somebody who's ready to retire. So that's how I came to be. That's how I actually niched down to supporting individuals 5 to 10 years from retirement.
Yeah. I love that you bring up that whole lifestyle side. Hopefully we'll get to that because I agree. When you look at the commercials of what retirement looks like that to me isn't what retirement's going to be. And
Yeah.
and you can kind of feel like, well, it's like, well, that's not mine. So I'm hoping we can get to that a little bit. But the first thing I want to ask is this word retirement can seem so impossible right now.
Yeah.
You got almost 7 out of households living paycheck to paycheck. Inflation is high right now as we're recording this.
Mhm.
Financial stress is the leading stressor for most Americans. How do you get people to, I guess, even see that word is tangible or that goal of retirement, whatever version of retirement means to them? How do you, as a coach or a guide, help people get that vision from the standpoint of like, man, retirement, Dalene, I'm looking at how can I survive this next month or the next 2 months? How are we going to get through this? Right. So
Right.
what do you do with that?
Yeah, so I take them, past those constraints. Like if you didn't have to worry about money, if you didn't have to worry about that paycheck right now, what would retirement look like and feel like to you? What do you want it to feel like? And, I recently did this with a client and starts naming all of these things. And as she's naming them, she's like, oh, it's going to cost more. But really, she was talking about visiting the local museums and just staying really local. Yes, she wanted to travel as well, but really just stepping out of all of your constraints, because I think that causes scarcity to a certain extent and doesn't allow us to even start thinking of possibilities. And I think once you can create a feeling for that, like, okay, retirement would look like for me to maybe have 2 different homes. I'm going to be bopping back and forth between them. And maybe they don't have to be big. Maybe they can be small. Maybe they can be in a location of the United States that doesn't cost as much. I just recently moved. Holy cow, housing market is crazy from where I left to where I am. And so, yes, inflation is crazy. But I think if you can create that dream and create that feeling, you can start meshing it to what is actuality. Because dealing with the individuals, they're like, well, what's my retirement number? I'm like, well, what do you want to do? You've got to know what your expenses are going to be able to have that number.
Those are all great. I love that. One of the things that I think keeps a lot of people stuck is this whole idea, well, everybody is struggling. You can almost get stuck into this social influence or this anchor bias that retirement is just unrealistic. Is there anything that you can do? Like you mentioned, coming up with these goals and these dreams of what that looks like to you, but how do you keep them on the path of not going back to more of this like pessimistic viewpoint of like, my family's struggling, coworkers are struggling, I see it on the news all the time? How do you keep people more in that positive light of this is something that's possible and feasible?
Yeah. So I love to share my story. Once I got on my path, I could care less what was going on. I had control. And seeing that I had control, knowing what I wanted. So really, I tried to help them dive into their expenses, if you want to say that, dive into whatever their financial situation is. And I recently had a client, she was like, I spend too much, I spend too much. And once we did the values exercise that I love doing with all my clients, she was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. This helps me. And it kind of settles that down. It keeps that negativity or that pessimistic idea and thoughts going. Like you have control, not of everything, but you have control of a pool. So why not control that pool? And I honestly believe that. I watched single moms, not getting child support, surviving on very, very low wage, providing in so many forms, so many ways. And I always thought, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And so it's creativity in a sense, but it's also contentment. Contentment.
Yeah. I love that. Contentment is so, oh yeah. Oh, we could talk a whole show about that.
Yes.
No question. No question. So if I'm an individual who comes to you, Dalene, and says, I'm thinking about retirement, am I ready to even start considering that? What are going to be some key indicators, I guess, in your profession and helping people like start a retirement plan? Like what are some key indicators that they're ready for that? Or are there some pre-work that they have to do in order to get to that point, in your opinion?
Yes and no. I'm going to say yes and no to that. So, if they're like, hey, I really would like to see if, retiring is a possibility, that's when we create that vision. That's when we create the dream and the reasons of why. There's a many different reasons why. It could be health. It could be job, lack of, support at your job or fulfillment even. And I love to share that my husband, his job was very stressful. He had had a heart attack about 3 years prior to us being able to retire him.
Wow.
And to me, it was more important to do what we had to do on whatever the income looked like and save his health. Because I was chatting with my brother probably about 3 months ago. He worked for Union Pacific, so federal. The railroad workers, within a year, they would die, they would pass on. And it was because they hadn't created this purpose beyond. So while we may be ready to get out of our job or want to get out of our job, it's so important to identify purpose. And what is that going to be? And then what we do is clarity on your financial situation. What does it look like? What are you spending your money on? Sometimes I believe people just create a list of expenses because they're just creating a list of expenses instead of really being, they're come from their heart or their value or their need. And so we really dive into that, reflect on that. After my first session, and I have my clients make a bills due date list, they come back and they're like, okay, I don't have those bills and those bills and those bills because I can either do without or do it in a better way. And it's just that clarity in that instant of spending time with it. And so now you have two ends of the spectrum. You have where you are and where you want to go. And we just start meshing things together. What does that look like?
Yeah. Man, you are speaking to my soul right now because it's so much of the stuff that we talk about on this show is, becoming just more intentional with every dollar that you bring into your life. And I would agree. After coaching thousands of people, I see the same types of things. It's, we're spending money just for the sake of spending money, but not for the real purpose or the goal that we have in our life, which is so good. So I love that you're speaking to the value of having short-term and long-term financial goals and how important it is to have your spending habits reflect what those goals look like. That is so good. So talk about, a lot of people get overwhelmed with just retirement because of a lack of education,
Mm-hmm.
like what is a 401k? What is a Roth IRA? If you're self-employed, what's a SEP IRA? Do you invest in real estate? Do you invest in the stock market? Do you invest in just single stocks? Like there's so much stuff out there. And for the average person that's out there, sometimes it can just be like, I just don't have the time nor the energy to really research every single option that is out there. So what do you suggest to somebody who's new to at least get some of an education to understand like where their money is going, how it's working? Like, how do you walk people through that?
Yeah. So I share how I did it on my journey as I picked an area that I needed to learn more, explore more, understand more, see what people were doing. So that's what I kind of counsel them to do. But if you are somebody who is working for an employer, hopefully you have an option of a 401, whether it's a Roth or traditional, choose one. Choose what feels good to you. I worked with a client this past summer and she's like, I just am nervous to do it. I said, don't do it then. You've got to learn more about it, and not that you should be holding back and not doing something, but learn enough that you can then move forward. But with those employer sponsored 401s, there is somebody there that will help educate you. And that should be a part of your employer plan. Take advantage of that. Go to them, start asking questions, start learning. And you can do just a little bit every single month or every single week, however, quick you want to get through this and start understanding this. Now, back when I started, my quote career, Roth was brand new. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it meant. And so learning about it, the HSA was also something that was new for me. The HRA, that was another one I was involved in. And so each time something new came out, I would have to ask questions. I'd be like, why is this a benefit for me? Somebody would share. Where I think you can go wrong is listening to too many coworkers.
Yeah.
People are like, when I was getting ready to retire, they're like, what are you going to do for medical care? I'm like, I've got a plan. Oh, I could never do that. Well, have you looked at it? Have you explored it? So that's another thing I love to help my clients, like, go explore that. Is that an option for you? How does that feel for you? I'm all about gut. If you don't feel right about it, because there are so many ways to just do the same thing, but from your way that feels comfortable.
Yeah, I love that you bring up don't listen to your coworkers. Also, that goes with friends, family, coworkers, right? It's so easy though, because you have this relationship with them, you trust them. but in a lot of cases, it's like, you know nothing about their financial situation. And they could just be regurgitating what they've heard from other people, from the media, and from all that stuff too. So let's talk at the next level, Dalene, about, do you help people personally with their retirement plan, or do you advise them to like get a financial advisor or learn it well enough to where they do it on their own? What is your viewpoints with that?
Since I am the financial coach, I don't have any certifications to advise. I really just take the stance of education. So I love to educate people, help them find what is available to them. Well, I've had probably about 50-50. 50-50 have been working with financial advisors and others have not. I did my entire journey without a financial advisor. So I believe it's what you feel is best for you. What's right for one person may not be right for another person. But it's interesting, the more I talk to, they're scared to work with a financial advisor.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that's something I'm trying to, through my own podcast, trying to help people get the education, get that learning to then be able to be comfortable with financial advisors. I've met several so that I could refer my clients to those that have certain personalities, certain goals that they have as advisors. But I really just tell them, get educated and then go the direction you feel is best for you.
Yeah. And what are you seeing? I guess, what are they leery of? Is it a trust thing, or is it a like, I feel stupid talking to them because I don't really know what I'm talking about? Like, what do you feel is holding them back from that?
I really think it's a trust. That was where I was going to go. Maybe it is, they don't have the education, so they don't feel like they can. So yeah, through my program, I love to help educate them, and then so that they can learn that to then ask. But I think that they're not trusting. I was on an interview a couple of days ago, and the individual says, well, I had to leave my corporate job, and then I took my money and I invested it with this financial advisor, and I don't have that money anymore. And so he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, so I get that there's financial decisions that we've made, good or bad. I mean, I'm not saying that has happened that then makes us leery, but I think it's also a learning opportunity. That's something we need to then understand better, and you can pick one thing and grow.
Yeah. I had one more question for you just on advisors. When it comes to an advisor, is there a way to qualify someone to say, this is my person? I know, like, we're on the same page. Is there something that you can use to guide people through? Because I hear that too. It's like, Brad, how do I know like who to look for, or who to trust, or who is not going to rip me off?
So going against what I said about coworkers, I still think there's an arm's length referral. So that's what I call it. There's somebody that's already worked with a financial advisor, but then you need to go interview them. That's what I tell them. I'm like, they're working for you. Go interview with them. If you don't like them or you don't connect with them, they're not the right person. Doesn't matter. I think they all have access to pretty much the same or similar products that can still do the same thing and reach your goal. But if you can't connect with somebody and be upfront with them and open with them, don't choose that person. So arm's length referral first, maybe talk to 5 different people, that you trust and that you maybe understand a little bit of their financial situation, and then go interview them. I had this question from my husband's cousin. She's like, I just don't know who to choose. And so as I was talking to her, she was helping her aunt, as her aunt was childless. She was helping her and had talked to her financial advisor. I go, well, do you like him? She goes, yeah. I go, why can't you use him? And so it's like, sometimes you just need to talk to somebody even outside and be like, I don't know who to go with, and have them start opening the eyes of, well, you've already talked to somebody. It's just in a different capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say that too. And if you're finding you're being pressured, that's a huge red flag, right? Yes, like you really need someone who can be patient with you, especially if you're a newbie. If you don't really know a lot, find someone who's willing to sit down, like Dalene or even ourselves, like just to explain it to you and to make sure you understand everything before you hand over any money. I think that's huge. So now we talk about budgeting a lot here, Dalene, but I always love bringing on other coaches and other people, because we get, hey, other people might be able to share some pretty cool tips or some pretty cool ideas that we haven't shared in our show. So you help people through the budgeting process. What are some big mistakes you see people making, but what are also some things that you feel can really help people move the needle when it comes to budgeting?
Yeah. So, most of my clients have not even been really looking at their bills in the detail that they should. And so, they're doing okay, They might have a little bit of debt or they may not. But once we start looking at those individually, they're like, oh, okay. And like I said, they'll cancel some of those bills. Obviously, not their utility and their mortgage, but of the other ones. So, a tip for your listeners that they can do is write a bills due date list. And so, what that is your bills that are due for the month from the 1st to the 30th. Everybody that you owe money to. Typically, budgets really are like, okay, you have your needs and then you have your others. This one is kind of all there, but it's everybody you owe during the month. Just make a list. How do you feel about that? These people you owe, they're expecting money from you every single month. And this is where I've had individuals say, oh, I forgot about that. Or somebody says, oh, I can do it a different way, or I don't need to do it anymore. So there's a lot of clarity just through that simple act. And it's just something that they start doing and starts moving the needle forward from them there. It's just simple. It's easy, but they haven't even been looking at their money prior to this. And so that there is bigger. Now, if you're somebody that has been looking at your money, I'm working with a client currently whose monthly situation is in the negative, but even so, we work the same process, doing the same things. Obviously, our tactics are different because of the cash flow lacking, but yet on our last call, he says, I was able to save some money. And it's just getting aware and getting real. And as he's doing that, he's stuck really income-wise with work, which will hopefully work itself out. And so he's on that path, which I know individuals can be there as they're trying to progress and trying to move ahead. So we have to take a step back. So just looking for those areas that you can improve or keep a hold of some money just for a little while.
Yeah. I love that. And even just that little win that person gets, it feels so good, especially when you're used to just losing all the time. You're finally, hey, I got to win. Like, it feels really great. Can you share, what do you feel has been, at least for your clients, the biggest area in their budget where they save the most money?
So the way I walk them through, we do just 3 categories. So bills, spending, everything else that's left over. And so for most of my clients, with the exception of 2 that have come to me for debt relief help, we've saved $400 to $1,000 a month. And these are individuals that are not making 6 figures. So, it doesn't matter how much you're earning, it's how much you actually do with it. And so taking that, and then I love to talk about stability, creating that financial stability. Who is expecting money from you? We talked about the monthly, but who's expecting it from you next month, in the quarter? Or here's a big one. And I know this is going to release a little bit later, but when we're recording, Christmas is around the corner. What are you doing to prepare for that? So, and I know when money is strapped, you're like, I just can't do it. I just don't know how to do it. That's something you can achieve for, strive to do and set some money aside every single month if you can.
Yeah. And I love that you bring that up. So you're saying people who make the less than 6 figures are improving their finances and are saving for retirement.
Yes.
There you have it. Yeah. See, and I wanted our listeners to hear that because there's so many people out there that have this mindset that I got to make all this amazing money or 6-figure income in order to be successful. And we just don't see that here. And you're not seeing it in your practice either.
Exactly. No.
That's incredible. Well, Dalene, it was awesome having you here. Kay, where can people learn more about you? I know you mentioned you have a podcast and other resources that you have. What can you give our listeners?
So my podcast is Wealthy After 40. They can come listen there. My website is www.elevatefinances.us. Everything is on there about me, how I serve, the different offers and programs that I have. I'm also over on Instagram at elevate_finances.
Awesome. Well, Dalene, thank you so much for being here and giving us some expert advice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, if you want to pay off debt, you want to save more money, you want to take control of your finances and start seeing those amazing results in just as little as 30 to 60 days, all you have to do is head over to debtfreedead.com, click on the green button at the top of the page, and we're going to show you how you can get started today. Hey, we get that getting out of debt isn't easy, but with our help and with your consistency and discipline, we promise you guys this will be some of the best work that you guys do in your entire life. Thanks for joining us on today's show, and we will see you guys in the next episode.